If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is a deep dive on the Anathema Pykana character Aleya attached to the Vigilators. Aleya is a character we would not want to play unless we had a unit of Vigilators attached to her. She is not a solo character. She does not have the same defensive profile as her Custodes infantry. It makes for a weak solo character. She doesn't have lone operative or anything like that. She would just get shot off the board. The Knight Centura can join Psykana units as well. She has more of a general rule set with access to enhancements. I will do a deep dive on the Knight Centura in the future. For this deep dive, I wanted to focus on Aleya with the Vigilators unit, take a look at the datasheets and how they pair with each other, then go through our 6 detachments to see if we can power this unit up even more. Each detachment will get a score out of 10 for this Aleya and Vigilators unit. We will start with Aleya and her datasheet. She has a movement of 6, toughness of 3, a 3-up save with a 5+ invulnerable, 4 wounds, 6 leadership, and an OC of 1. No range weapons. Her melee weapon is Somnus, 4 attacks, hitting on a 2+, strength 6, AP 3, damage 3, with anti-psyker 5 and devastating wounds. She can lead Prosecutors, Vigilators, and Witchseekers. For her abilities, she has a 6 in scope move, 5+ feel no pain, tactical perception, tenacious spirit, and daughter of the abyss. Tactical perception, while this model is leading a unit, models in that unit have the fights first ability. Tenacious spirit, while this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll if that unit is below its starting strength, and add 1 to the wound roll as well if that unit is below half strength. Daughters of the Abyss, this model has a 3+ feel no pain against psychic attacks and mortal wounds. No fancy shooting for Aleya, no need for shooting when she has Somnus. 4 attacks, hitting on the 2+, strength 6, AP 3, damage 3 with anti-psyker 5 and devastating wounds. Aleya is one of our rare AP 3, damage 3 melee attacks. Devastating wounds is even more rare in our Custodes army. 4 wounds with a 3+ save and a 5+ invulnerable. She is not the hardest character to take out with precision attacks. It is her abilities that make the Aleya with Vigilators unit extra spicy. Her 5+ feel no pain will help protect her from precision attacks. It won't turn her into a walking tank. It should blank out a wound or 2. Tenacious Spirit, Aleya attached to Vigilators. If we lose one model, the unit will gain +1 to the hit roll, making the Vigilators hit on a 2+ instead of their base 3+. A big jump in their damage potential. Below half strength for +1 to wound is nice. By the time we are below half strength, the unit will have lost a lot of its overall damage potential. Aleya with 10 Vigilator models will need to be at 4 Vigilators and Aleya to have access to the +1 to the wound roll. Daughter of the Abyss, not something that will come up all the time. When it does though, a 3+ feel no pain to psychic damage and mortal wounds is amazing. The Vigilators will have this ability too. I have had these tank an entire shooting phase from Magnus. The last ability, Tactical Perception, the one and only fights first unit in our entire army. This is including Codex and Forge World units, as well as detachment rules. Aleya attached to 10 Vigilators can do some real damage in the fight phase. We do have a few ways to move this unit in the opponent's turn to charge block or even boost the damage potential even more of this unit. Next, let's take a look at the Vigilator datasheet. They have a movement of 6, toughness of 3, a 3-up save, 1 wound, 6 leadership, and an OC of 1. Like Aleya, they have no ranged weapons. For their melee weapon is the Executioner Greatblade, 2 attacks, hitting on a 3+, strength 5, AP 2, damage 2, anti-psyker 5, and devastating wounds. We can take these in a unit of 4, 5, 9, or 10 models. For the abilities, we have Daughter of the Abyss and Deft Parry. Daughters of the Abyss, once again, is at 3+ feel no pain against psychic attacks and mortal wounds. Deft Parry, each time a melee attack targets this unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. These gals hit very hard in the fight phase for a Psykana unit. No pew-pews here at all. The Witchseekers and the Prosecutors are a non-factor for actual damage. The Vigilators, Executioner Greatblades are no joke. 2 attacks, hitting on a 2+ with strength 5, AP 2, damage 2, anti-psyker 5, and what really makes a difference is that devastating wounds. Devastating wounds allows them to potentially put damage into monster and vehicles. In the recent September 2025 balance update, the Vigilators 9 and 10 model unit has went down by 15 points. Now these are a real choice in our Custodes army. For the Vigilator abilities, Daughters of the Abyss, all of our Psykana units will have this ability. It makes them an absolute pain in the rear to take them out with psychic attacks or mortal wounds. Deft Parry. This ability, giving -1 to the hit roll of incoming attacks, highlights even more why this is a fight phase unit. Deft Parry, paired with the 3+ save, makes these Vigilators not really a chaff unit to be cleared out with minimal effort. Let's talk a little bit about these two units put together into one unit, then we'll move on to the detachments. I would run this unit with no less than 5 Vigilators. Ideally, if we're going to run this unit, we might as well run it at full power with Aleya and 10 Vigilators. The unit is not that hard to kill with shooting, a 3+ save is nice, but we have no invulnerable saves besides Aleya and her 5+ invulnerable. Aleya with the 10 Vigilators will have a 3+ Feel No Pain to mortals and psychic damage, -1 to the hit roll of incoming melee attacks, +1 to their hit roll with their greatswords if the unit is below starting strength, as well as +1 to the wound roll if that Aleya and Vigilator unit is below half strength, and best of all, fights first. 20 attacks hitting on a 3+, Strength 5, AP 2, Damage 2, Anti-Psyker 5, and Devastating Wounds. Then we have Aleya's 4 attacks hitting on a 2+, Strength 6, AP 3, Damage 3, with Devastating Wounds and Anti-Psyker 5 as well. There are some downsides to this unit. Aleya does not share her 6-inch scout ability. If the entire unit does not have the scout ability, we can't scout the unit. Since the Vigilators do not have the scout ability, we cannot scout this unit 6 inches forward. When I was writing this, the Aleya and 10 Vigilators unit was 190 points. Now that the 10 Vigilator unit has went down by 15 points, this entire unit has went down to 175 points. By no means a cheap unit to throw away, it has to do something in the game to make up for the points. If you notice, there's no martial kata ability with these Psykana units, meaning no sustained hits 1 or lethal hits from our army rule. There are rules in our detachments that do exclude Psykana units. Some of these rules could really have been used to help buff up this unit even more. Let's take a look at the 6 different detachments of the Adeptus Custodes to see which of these detachments is best for Aleya and the Vigilators. On to the 6 detachments we have access to is the Adeptus Custodes. We'll start with the Shield Host detachment, and this one will be a quick one. The detachment rule is Martial Mastery, where in the fight phase we can either have critical hits on 5s or an extra AP 1 on our melee weapons. The detachment rule requires the model to have the martial kata ability. Our Anathema Pykana units do not have that martial kata ability. As much as AP 3 greatswords and sustain hits 1 and lethal hits on a 5+, it would greatly benefit Aleya and the Vigilators, we can only dream. No sustain hits 1 or lethal hits, no detachment rule, and only one stratagem. The Shield Host is rough on the Aleya and Vigilator unit, or any Psykana unit in general. The one stratagem that we can use in the Shield Host detachment is Multi-Potentiality. For 1 CP, this is our fallback, shoot and charge stratagem. This is the one rule in the entire detachment that works on the Aleya and Vigilator unit. Everything else is locked out to Psykana units. Luckily for us, out of all of the stratagems in the Shield Host detachment, fallback, shoot and charge is one of the best ones for a melee unit. No need for Arcane Genetic Alchemy when we have a 3+ Feel No Pain to mortals. No need for the -1 to the hit roll in the fight phase stratagem. We already have that with the Vigilator's Deft Parry ability. Fallback and charge is great for this unit. If we get charged, survive the combat, next turn for 1 CP, we can fall back and charge a different unit. Aleya does give the unit fights first. With that fights first ability, we have less to worry about ongoing engagements. If we do want to stay in engagement and take out the unit we are engaged with, we do have that fight first ability to get the first attack off. There is not much else to say about this unit in the Shield Host detachment. The one stratagem we do have is nice, fallback and charge. The Aleya and Vigilator unit would add a dangerous fights first unit to a list, but that's about it. An interesting choice, but I have to give Aleya and the Vigilators an average 5 out of 10. Not the worst choice, but definitely not the best choice. There are much better detachments for this unit other than the Shield Host. Next up is the Auric Champions detachment. The detachment rule is Assemblage of Might. At the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in an Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army makes an attack that targets that unit, add 1 to the wound roll. +1 to the wound roll is a great buff for this unit. We can get +1 to the wound roll from Aleya. The unit does need to be below half strength to get that +1 to wound though. Getting it from the detachment rule will make this unit much stronger. Vigilators are strength 5, with +1 to the wound roll will help them into those tougher targets. No shooting in this unit at all, they can only take advantage of the +1 to the wound roll in the fight phase. The Auric Champion stratagems only target the character model in your unit, so that does take the power down of some of these stratagems. One of the stronger stratagems is earning a name for 1 CP. You can select up to 2 different Adeptus Custodes character units. The character model in those units will get to reroll their hit roll and their wound roll against monster or vehicle units. Using this stratagem on Aleya is an option. Although she only has 4 attacks, no sustained hits or lethal hits, it is not as dangerous as on a Custodes character like Trajan using Moment Shackle. It is an option though. Maybe we only have Aleya and another Custodes character unit in combat. We might as well select her as one of the characters to reroll the hits and wounds into a monster or vehicle unit. We may get lucky and roll a bunch of 6s on the wound roll. Aleya does have damage 3 with devastating wounds. There are some other stratagems that could be used on Aleya. Since stratagems only target the character model in Auric Champions, Aleya herself is not the best character to use a 2 CP Fight on Death stratagem or for 1 CP a 4+ Feel No Pain. Aleya with Vigilators does gain access to the detachment rule. Only being 1 enemy unit does make it a bit harder to use. A lot of the times, we may want to make sure a Custodes unit can target the assemblage of might target, even though Aleya can use the stratagems and the Vigilator unit would gain the +1 to the wound roll into the assemblage of might target. I still give this unit an average 5 out of 10. There are better detachments for this unit, not worth the points investment in Auric Champions. The next detachment is the Solar Spearhead. This will be another quick detachment. The detachment rule, the unit does need to be a vehicle or walker unit. Our Aleya and Vigilator unit is neither a vehicle or a walker. Once again, no detachment rule for this unit. Even though this is the vehicle and Dreadnought detachment, there are a few stratagems that do work on the Vigilators and Aleya. The first one is Emperor's Vengeance. This will give non-walker units a 4+ Fight on Death. A 4+ Fight on Death for a melee only unit is a nice bonus for this detachment. Is it a reason to take Aleya with the 10 Vigilators? Nope, not at all. The smaller Psykana units are needed to score points. This is the Tanks and Dreadnoughts detachment, not much need for big expensive infantry units. We also have Wrathful Advance for 1 CP. This will give a D3 +3 pylon move. We could use this to get some extra models into combat, tag another unit, or even grab an objective. The problem with it is that D3 +3 movement, not that reliable. It will be very situational for this Psykana unit. Another detachment that is not the best for this unit of greatsword wielding gals. There is nothing to boost the damage or survivability of the unit. The detachment rule and most of the other rules in the detachment do not work on infantry units or are not worth the 1 CP on an infantry unit. Solar Spearhead is going to get the lowest score, a 2 out of 10. Small 4-man units of Psykana units, yes. The Aleya with 10 Vigilators unit, not so much. The next detachment is the Lines of the Emperor. The Lines of the Emperor detachment rule is against all odds. Each time an Adeptus Custodes unit from your army, excluding vehicles, makes an attack, if there's no other friendly units within 6 inches of that unit, add 1 to the hit roll and add 1 to the wound roll. This is the best detachment rule for this unit in all 6 detachments. It does not lock out Psykana units either, like the Shield Host detachment. +1 to the hit and +1 to the wound roll is for the shooting and the fight phase. Our Aleya and Vigilator unit does not have any shooting to take advantage of the better shooting. Strength 5 greatswords hit on a 3+, they will love the +1 to the hit and +1 to the wound. Now the unit does not need to lose any models to get better at greatswording. We will move on to the stratagems from Lines of the Emperor that will work on this unit. Our first stratagem, Defiant to the Last for 1 CP. This will give Aleya a 2+ Fight on Death. The Vigilators in the unit will have a 4+ Fight on Death. The fact that Aleya has the Fights First ability, there will only be a few times where her unit has not already activated. We cannot attack and then use Fight on Death to attack again. It is useful when your opponent uses counteroffensive to interrupt or another way to bypass Fights First. Next up is Maneuver and Fire for 1 CP. Fallback, Shoot and Charge is a great stratagem. No guns, but we do have great swords. Not as strong as on a Fights First unit. If we are engaged with a unit that we want to take out in the fight phase, no need to fall back and charge for Fights First. The only time we want to use this stratagem if we want to charge a different unit, or the unit we are engagement range has Fights First in our turn, or they will survive our attack, then chop up our gals. Aleya giving the units Fights First makes this stratagem situational. The next stratagem is Peerless Warrior for 1 CP. This will give all models in the unit the precision ability on their melee weapons. Need a tough enemy character dead, but don't want to send an expensive Trajan with Warden's unit? Aleya with 10 Vigilators got this. 1 CP for the entire unit's attacks to be precision, 2 attacks, AP 2 and damage 2, and devastating wounds. The Vigilators will kill the character themselves, let alone Aleya's 4 attacks at AP 3, damage 3 with devastating wounds as well. Peerless Warrior for 1 CP combined with the Detachment rule to give the unit +1 to hit and +1 to the wound. Aleya's unit with this stratagem are great character hunters. The next stratagem is Swift as an Eagle for 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase, just after our Aleya and Vigilators unit has been shot, we can make a D6 normal move. Normally not a stratagem we use on our Psykana units. This unit we have points investment in, we want it to stay on the table as long as possible. D6 movement is unreliable, try not to use this with an if I roll a 6 mindset. If we have lost a few models and a low roll could move the unit out of line of sight of enemy guns, 1 CP is worth the risk. A few models left with a Hail Mary I need a 6, I would save the CP. I think this might be the best overall detachment to use the Aleya and Vigilators unit. They are the best unit in the Null Maiden detachment. Null Maiden Vigil is not that strong though. The Lines of the Emperor detachment rule turns them into a real threat into most units in 40k. AP 2, damage 2, devastating wounds with +1 to hit and wound. A good selection of stratagems to go along with the detachment rule. I give the Aleya with 10 Vigilators unit a strong 8 out of 10. For all the buffs we can get in the Lines of the Emperor, a fights first unit can really come in handy. The next detachment is the Talons of the Emperor. The detachment rule is Revered Companions. This does have 2 different parts. Psykana units from your army gain the following ability. Null Aegis, while Adeptus Custodes unit is within 6 inches of this unit, models in that unit have a 5+ Fatal Pain against psychic attacks and mortal wounds. All other Adeptus Custodes units from your army gain the following ability, Deadly Unity, while a Psykana unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time a model in that Psykana unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. The Daughters of the Abyss ability already gives us a 3+ Fatal Pain to psychic and mortals. There is going to be a theme for this unit going through this detachment. Find a strong Custodes infantry unit to buddy up with. Many of these stratagems in this detachment allow us to select 2 units as long as one of those units is a Psykana unit. This is the first time I've gone through these stratagems with the thought of selecting 2 units in a long time. Aleya with the 10 Vigilators feel like it was made for this detachment. The Deadly Unity giving them +1 to the hit actually making a difference. It really is a shame we do not have a larger Psykana unit selection for this detachment, or the Null Maiden Vigil detachment who really depend on their Psykana units. Our first stratagem is Emperor's Executioners for 2 CP. At the start of the fight phase, select up to 2 Adeptus Custodes units from your army, as long as one of those is a Psykana unit and one of those is a Adeptus Custodes unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in one of your units targets an enemy unit that is below starting strength, add 1 to the wound roll. Our Aleya and 10 Vigilators unit would be a great choice for +1 to the wound into a target. This is a pick 2 unit stratagem. Aleya's unit tagging along with a Blade Champion Warden's unit can be a nice combination in the Talons of the Emperor. Emperor's Executioners seems to be made for the Vigilators. We do not want to have Witchseekers or Prosecutors in melee combat. This unit really brings the identity and theme of the stratagem out. 1 Custodes unit and 1 Psykana unit back to back, cutting down the enemies of the Emperor. Next up is Hunt as 1 for 1 CP, and this is another select 2 different Custodes units. This is our fallback, shoot and charge stratagem. Fallback and charge is not as important on a fights first unit. It does allow us to fall back and charge a different unit than we are currently engaged with. For the most part, this stratagem will be on the lower priority than our other Custodes units who do not have fights first. Next up is Shield of Honor from 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase, 1 Psykana infantry unit from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks, and 1 other friendly Adeptus Custodes infantry unit, excluding Psykana units, within 6 inches of our Aleya and Vigilators unit. Until the end of the phase, any attack that targets our Psykana unit must instead target your other Adeptus Custodes unit, unless it is not an eligible target. Another stratagem that feels much more impactful with an expensive Psykana unit. 1 CP to save a 4 model Witchseeker unit seems like a waste of CP. 1 CP to save our Aleya unit from enemy shooting sounds much better. The more I look into this unit, the more I wish we had other good Psykana options for dealing damage. There could be a really fun detachment here. Next up for 1 CP is Talon Pincer. When the enemy ends a normal advance or fallback move within 9 inches of our Aleya unit, we can make a normal move up to 6 inches. Once again, this is another select up to 2 different units. This one can really feel powerful when you select 2 units. There is a restriction: we cannot select units that are within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. And if we are going to select a Psykana unit and a Custodes unit, they do need to be within 6 inches of each other. We can use this like the normal way of moving to make it charge harder or moving out of line of sight. Aleya gives her unit the Fights First ability. It opens up a lot more things we can do with this stratagem. We can move this unit into a charge block. The enemy wants to charge one of our units. Move 6 inches to plant this unit in front of the target. If the enemy unit does charge, our Aleya and Vigilators unit will get to swing first. The fact that this is a normal move and we can select 2 units, we can do something really fun. We can move Aleya's unit through a Custodes unit to make a Fights First charge block. If you've noticed, all of these select 2 unit stratagems require the units to be within 6 inches of each other. We want to stick our Psykana close to our Custodes to give the Custodes unit that 5+ feel no pain to psychic and mortals. Aleya with the 10 Vigilators take advantage of all these select 2 unit rules. Talons is usually the detachment I dislike talking about the most. I'm not sure what it is about it, I just don't like it that much. This deep dive was actually fun. It could be that this was a unit that feels like it plays into the identity of the Talons of the Emperor. A Fights First unit with devastating wounds can actually provide some backup to our Custodes units. 10 Witchseekers with Emperor's Executioners is not a threat. 10 Vigilators with Aleya with +1 to the wound from Emperor's Executioners is a real threat. I really like this unit in the Talons of the Emperor. We do need to be within 6 inches of a strong Custodes unit, preferably a Blade Champion Wardens or maybe even Trajan and Custodian Guard to bring out the unit's strength. I give the Aleya and Vigilators unit a 7 out of 10 in the Talons of the Emperor. This also gets a 10 out of 10 for fun factor in the Talons of the Emperor. This is a really fun unit in this detachment, and like I said, it really brings out the theme of this detachment. Our next detachment is the Null Maiden Vigil. The detachment rule is Creeping Dread. In the Battle Shock step of your opponent's command phase, if an enemy unit that is either a Psyker unit or is below starting strength within 12 inches of 1 or more Psykana units from your army, that enemy unit must take a Battle Shock test. If that unit is below half strength, it must subtract 1 from its Battle Shock test this phase instead. Not the most powerful detachment rule by itself. I find these Battle Shock rules depend on what the detachment rules can do with a Battle Shock target. Aleya with the Vigilators is the strongest pure Psykana unit the Custodes have. They have a decent chance to greatsword enemies into below half strength units to give out those -1 Battle Shock tests. Let's see what the Null Maiden Vigil can do to power up our best Psykana units. Our first stratagem is Anathema Blade Mastery for 1 CP. This is used in the fight phase. This will allow our Vigilators unit to reroll the hit roll. If we target a Battle Shock unit or a Psyker unit, we can reroll the wound roll as well. Reroll the hits is a great buff for this unit. Reroll the wounds is even better when we have devastating wounds. The enemy target needs to be Battle Shocked or a Psyker unit to get those reroll the wound roll. If our Aleya and Vigilator unit has lost a model, the Vigilators will be hitting on a 2+. Use Anathema Blade Mastery for 1 CP for reroll hits and possibly reroll wounds. One of the strongest stratagems for this unit in the Null Maiden Vigil. Next up is Sideshaft Volley for 1 CP. In your shooting phase, 1 Prosecutor unit from your army that has just shot, you can select 1 enemy unit hit by 1 or more of those attacks. Until the start of your next turn, that enemy unit is prosecuted. And while that enemy unit is prosecuted, each time one of our Psykana models attack that unit, improve our armor penetration of that attack by 1. While a Psyker or Battle Shock unit is prosecuted, each time they make an attack, subtract 1 from their hit roll. We do need a Prosecutor unit to first use Sideshaft Volley. Any Psykana unit that attacks that target of the stratagem, +1 AP to their attacks. Aleya's Somnus will be at AP 4, damage 3. The Vigilator's Greatswords will be AP 3, damage 2. A great stratagem to have this unit shredding through infantry or doing some good damage into vehicle and monster units. Next up is Psychic Abominations for 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase, This will give our Aleya and Vigilator unit the stealth ability. Battle-shocked and Psyker models can only select your unit as a target of range attack if they are within 12 inches. The Detachment does not have a lot of rules to buff the survivability of the unit. We do have -1 to the hit roll in combat from the Vigilator's ability, and -1 to shooting from the stratagem. It does help keep this unit stay alive. I would have liked this to be a 4+ invulnerable save, or something that really buffs the overall survivability of our Psykana units. -1 to the hit roll is nice, but they're still toughness 3, 1 wound bodies. Our next stratagem is Witch Hunters for 1 CP. This can be used in the shooting or the fight phase, and since we have no guns on this unit, we will be using this in the fight phase. This will give our weapons either lethal hits or sustain hits 1, but this only can be used into a Psyker unit with those attacks. Sustain hits 1 or lethal hits on Aleya with 10 Vigilators is 24 total attacks. Combine Anathema Blade Mastery for 1 CP to reroll the hits and possible wounds 2. Lose 1 model for 22 attacks but hit on a 2+, there is a lot of potential damage. Except the target needs to be a Psyker unit to gain sustain hits 1 or lethal hits. There are too many needs to be a Psyker rules in this detachment. I understand the theme, but some seem underpowered unless we're targeting a Psyker unit. I feel this is an easy unit to score for the Null Maiden Vigil. In Null Maiden Vigil, this is the best Psykana unit we have. Throw it in a Psykana Rhino to add some extra speed and protection. The Aleya with Vigilators unit score a perfect 10 out of 10 for this detachment. It's not a world breaker unit in this detachment, but it is the best Psykana unit we have for Null Maiden Vigil. Let's look at the total score for our 6 detachments and then move on to some final thoughts. The Solar Spearhead was a 2 out of 10, Shield Host and Auric Champions both came in at 5 out of 10, the Talons of the Emperor 7 out of 10, Lines of the Emperor an 8 out of 10, and the Null Maiden Vigil a 10 out of 10. On to the final thoughts. This was a fun deep dive. It was interesting to find some rules that could really power this unit up. It is not like our normal Psykana units, this unit has some real melee threat. After doing this deep dive, I want to try Psykana Custodes list in the Lines of the Emperor detachment. I think there is some play there to be had. Will it be competitive? Time will tell. Have you used the Aleya and Vigilators unit? Which is your favorite detachment to play them in? Subscribe for battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Channel members gain early access to videos and an invite to the channel Discord. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.